Oh, great. Okay. Okay.
Ready?
You
Okay.
should be on. You should be live.
Video and sound check. How is it, Wage Slave?
I don't know if he's even still here. I haven't seen
I
anything.
don't know. He's the only person.
Hi, David.
Yeah.
Somebody should be seeing us now.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. They had a
Note, everybody, the GoFundMe link for Lars is up at the top of the chat and on the bulletin board.
yeah. Lars had to start a GoFundMe, so that's the URL. We're gonna contribute some. We don't have a whole lot. It's middle of winter, of course, but we'll be doing some, and hopefully we can help him out a little bit, get through this unfortunate time. And yeah, I don't know when it was. I'm thinking might have even been in the 70s, but I'm not sure. But on the halftime show of the NFL football games, they had a barroom bouncer competition one year where they'd have different things like, can you slide the patron down the bar and things like that. And Mr. T, that's where he, as far as I know, got his really debut, where people actually saw him, so to speak, and then it became kind of popular after that. Anyhow, so this week wasn't doing much in the way of mining. I was doing a lot of work on the YouTube channel. Read me stuff if it's important there, so I don't have to poke my face in everyone's.
Hiya, Mr. Virtue.
And I got my first playlist up. Now, I don't know why there may be a way to do it. I may just not know how to do it, etc. But I would have thought there was a way you could, if you are watching this video, it's automatically you're looking at the playlist, but apparently that's not the case. So I put the playlist link there, and that seems to work okay, but it requires somebody to manually observe and figure that out. So actually putting them on the playlist is quite easy. You just go to the thumbnail of the thing, like when you're in your usual looking at videos, what do I want to see sort of thing. At that point, if you click on the three dots, it's add to playlist, click, it shows you your playlist, and click, and it's all done. So that part's pretty darned easy. So that's what I was trying to do, to try and it's a lot of experimenting right now just to see how well it works. But the idea was to give, again, the novice a more organized series of videos, so it's easier for them to figure out how to go through and gather the knowledge that's important for exploring for hard rock gold mines. And if you guys have any feedback on how well that worked, what do you think of that, etc., I'd appreciate it. Somebody else just did something new.
SCP Adventures in God's Country says hello, Keith and Eva. Smash that thumbs up. Smash it hard.
Hey, Adventures.
Make America great again. You got that right.
Yeah. It's an interesting, going to be an interesting couple of days and stuff here. We will see what happens, but say at least so far things are proceeding without any kind of catastrophic interruptions. I consider that a definite.
David
win.
says, and again. You got that right.
So, as I say, that's what I basically did. I heard that phone sound again. Sounds like it's over in the living room, doesn't it? Yeah, where it's kind of ringing? Not right now. It was just a minute ago, though. There. Me, it sounds like it's that way.
All we can assume is maybe somebody behind us across the alley has an actual phone.
I don't know. I don't think we could hear it across the alley.
Well, I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
A very strange thing has been happening. We have been hearing an old style, plug into the wall style
Ring-a-ling-a.
phone ringing.
Yeah.
And we have no idea from where.
Yeah. It's quiet, but it's detectable. What is this one?
And it says, see and agree, David.
Yep. And the other thing that's been keeping me busy here this week is, hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
It's finally gotten a little bit cold. And so it's allowed us to figure out what's going awry with the water supply. First thing was the hot water heater compartment. It has an insulated outer door, but there's no circulation of air with the other areas inside.
SCP says, has anybody heard how Lars is doing? Well, Lars's GoFundMe is on the board, and it's also in the chat. Chris says back isn't happy but surviving. We have not heard. When was our last update on how Lars is doing?
That would have probably been about Tuesday when he sent me the link. Last I heard was everybody bugged out safely. He put up a video. You can actually go to This Old Mine with Lars, and you can actually see the video he put up when he, skedaddled and stuff. They had enough time to make an organized exit, so they were able to a certain extent, prioritize what got left, what got taken and such, which is better than some people did. Some people had to run for their lives, which would be a horrible thing. But anyhow, so it was at least an organized evacuation. Everybody is fine physically. They were able to get some mementos and this and that and the other. So it's better than some people. He's still got his employment, and he was looking around to figure out what to do last I heard. I haven't heard anything since that. I think it was just Tuesday. With any luck, he'll show up tonight. But he seemed in reasonable spirits considering the situation. I mean, that would normally, put someone down pretty good. And he still had some of his sense of humor. So I think he sounded like he was doing okay under the circumstances, but it is a tough situation, and so we should all send our positive vibes, prayers, etc., etc., etc. But anyhow, Eva now has her surgery date, which is the 11th of February, over in Billings. It's too far away to see what the projected weather is. It's a little over 200 miles away. Assuming that the weather isn't horrible, they're basically good roads and stuff.
No, Shaggy says cheers, and David says wait till it really sets in.
Yeah. And so
Chris says JPL and Caltech had many, many employees lose their homes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But anyhow, so the plan is Eva's going to get a reservation at a motel real close to the hospital. We'll head over Monday the 10th, check into the motel, and then her surgery scheduled for the 11th. She's going to be spending the night in the hospital of the 11th. Theoretically, she gets out the next day, and we will head home.
Shaggy says it's snowing there. It just started.
Yeah. there hadn't been a whole lot of snow this particular situation, and it got down to, well, this morning when I got up, it was 7 below zero. And I think the night before, the hot water turned off. We were trickling the cold water and stuff, and it was giving indications that it was trying to freeze up. When we turn it on, it would clear it out. What?
SCP says, very heartbreaking. It's good luck, Eva, on the surgery. I just had a major neck fusion. Lots of pain. Managing well.
Well, that's good.
Well, good thing you're managing well. It sounds miserable.
Yeah. Eva's surgery should be relatively routine and, moderate risk of any real serious complications or whatever.
Chris says that's getting pretty chilly, and David says we keep falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Entropy is a thing. But anyhow, so with the hot water system, I say it froze up, wouldn't. So apparently the hot water heater compartment is accessed from the outside. That door is insulated, but there's no communication with the inside air to that compartment, so it could just sit there and get colder.
Kenneth says, hi, everyone.
Hello. And so I cut a hole in there and put a little vent, and now I've got a little heater in here blowing warm air in there, and it's 52 degrees in that compartment right now. So that problem is dealt with. The next day or two, it's supposed to warm up significantly.
Yeah, we're going to get up to 31 again.
Yeah. And I'm going to say the indications are that from where the supply line for our water comes out of the ground, tees to another trailer, and then comes our way, that is trying to freeze up.
Beth says your typical mobile home construction, you need heat tape all the way along the supply line. And John Faber says, hello, everybody. Hi, John.
Hey, John.
If you have any mining questions, feel free to ask.
I agree, Chris. It does have some heat tape, but it may not be functioning anymore. I say in the next day or two, my plan is to access that whole thing and just replace the heat tape, the insulation, the whole 9 yards, get it done. The crawl space underneath the trailer, when it was -7 degrees last night, it was 48 degrees down there. So that part is working fine. But it's this trailer and another one, there's about 4 or 5 feet between the two. And that's where the utilities come up out of the ground and then split, both the water and the power. And that's where I think the issue is. So I want to redo all that, make sure it's all, got good heat tape and thoroughly insulated. Somebody's here.
I will be right back.
11 below with a wind chill of 32 below, huh? Hello, Red Wing. How's it going? So anyhow, that's been kind of my focus right now, is don't want things to break and trying to use this opportunity at the first real cold snap to find out what the weak points are and then address them. I say the water heater seems to be taken care of, although I would prefer if it wasn't an active intervention that was required, but at least it's easy to do. Oh, there's an insulated box over it, Chris, but I suspect that it was wrapped in heat tape, and those things don't last forever. So that's my guess. So that's the plan for this week, because we need to be able to leave this place for a couple, 3 days to get Eva fixed without leaving water running and such. That's always a risky operation. So that's the plan. Let's see. Okay. Another thing, Kodak sent me a link. Apparently, Vivor makes a kiln very similar in capabilities. Hello, Jean-Francois, to the tabletop kiln, but a lot cheaper. And so Lauren said that he really liked the price. You can get it for, there's some kind of promotional discount thing. You sign up for something and it's like $301. The compartment is about the same size as the tabletop. The temperature is rated at 2195 F. So it's a very, very comparable.
Did you read all this?
No.
Okay.
They keep popping up.
So Shane says it was a hell of a lot colder last night. Minus 16 wind chills down to 47 below. Chris says you need to test heat tape at the beginning of each season.
How do you test the heat tape? You know, is it something where if it's 80 degrees, does it get hot? You know, because I was under there when the temperatures were like 70 degrees underneath the trailer, and the heat tape's not. Right now it's 50 degrees under the trailer.
Chris says sell your souls and trying to get a 20% discount, huh?
Pretty much.
And Chris also says that Red Wing's mine looks like it needs a bit of rehab, but it doesn't look nearly as bad as the lot he's been in.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad. I agree. It looks pretty reasonable. But anyhow, I say it would be nice if there was some way to test the heat tape. I suppose I could do a continuity check, but even then, the spot where I think the problem is not accessible from under the trailer. So I'm going to have to tear some covers off to get to it.
Chris says you wrap it in a bag of ice at the temperature sensor.
Okay.
And Shane says the ones he has a little light on them.
I'll say, I'm not sure. There's one down there right now that goes along the supply line to the wall where it comes into the crawl space. So my thought is I'll just open up the compartment on the other side, replace everything, just assume that one there is bad, it's been there for a long time, just take it all off and replace it all and leave it at that. So
well, maybe we should look for the ones like Shane has with a little light on them.
well, so I think there's a light down there, but I think mine, the light that's on there is just the end of the electrical cord. I think it's just a lighted thing there. But yeah, I'd say it would be nice if there was a little test button or something like that. Anyhow, the plan is just replace it all. New installation, new heat tape, know where we're started. But that's no sense even tearing into that stuff until the environmental conditions are a lot less harsh, which should be, yeah, the end.
Chris says, I'm assuming Vivor the heater off Amazon, probably. Wage Slave says, we need to pan the dirt under the mansion, and I absolutely agree with you, Wage Slave. I was already thinking along those lines. Chris says, use your kilometer thing.
I'll have to take a look at that, see what the various functions are. It's been a while.
Dave Vanderwall says, put a drop light in the crawl space by the pipe and make sure the light bulb's incandescent.
Well, the problem with that is, Dave, that getting into that area, you gotta pull screwed down hatches. That's one reason I never got to it so far. is because it's a real pain. I had a little fun trying that a while back last year when we were trying to find the shutoff valve for the water supply here. And it wasn't there. It was actually under the trailer. But now I've got a pretty good, I've spent a lot of time under this trailer, so I got a pretty good idea of what's going on down there. Okay, what's...
Chris says you need to see how many watts it's drawing and estimate the length to determine if you're getting heat.
Okay. Let's see. My plan...
And, of course, if it's not drawing any watts at all, I'm assuming that means it's broke-defied.
Let's see. My plan right now is just go ahead and replace, because once I've done all that accessing, I pretty much just want to go ahead and just put some new stuff in there while I'm there and go from there. But first I got to see exactly what I've got going on. And that's going to be, I'll see it when I see it. Right now I know in theory what I've got, but I don't know in detail.
Rocky Mountain Prospector, Brad Hayden, says, hello, everyone.
Howdy. How's it going, Brad?
Got any questions? Be sure to ask. Otherwise, we're just talking nonsense over here.
Yeah, we're just talking.
Jean
functional
Francois
stuff.
says he uses a small car warmer, 750 watts. Old model, all metal, will last 200 years.
Yeah, the old ones do like that.
Somebody named Rick says, hello, Dawn at Red Wing Mine.
Yeah. So, anyhow, that's what. I can't read from here.
John Faber says, question, on the resin you use, are you still using the AR3 you talked about in the previous video? The link no longer exists.
AR3? That doesn't sound familiar. It's
Max Water.
Max Water 104133, I believe.
And Brian Smith says it's cold in Denver. I'm trying to look for something real quick, Bear, and
That's the resin that we're using. And I don't know, we might have bought it through Amazon. I'm not sure.
got their website right here.
Okay.
I'm looking to see if I can get us a.
It's strong base anion resin, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the.
He was looking some stuff up, which means I can't see any comments or whatever.
We will get back to the comments in a minute, folks. I'm trying to find an actual link to this stuff.
Try Max Water 104133. Not Max Water. Max Water 104133. See? What's the price running now?
It's their anion resin for nitrate reduction, if you
Yep.
want to be exact.
That's
Canadian, $125 for 5 pounds.
120. So $25. It's gone up significantly. It was about $13 for 5 pounds. Of course, that maybe that particular, is that from Max Water?
Yeah.
Okay. So the price has about doubled, but it was a relatively small.
Now on
part of the
Amazon, 1 pound of it is $32 for the first thing that comes up.
Get a link and put it in, and then get back to the comments.
I'm just going to get back to the comments, people, because I can't find our link at the moment. Okay. Now, Chris said maybe you're talking KD3, which would be the actual stuff we use to
That was just
And Brian says, having fun stripping X-rays. Well, that's cool. Dan Garland says, howdy, Keith. Did you ever test and see how well your Leeching resin was working on the silver?
Not very well.
Yeah, not very well, I wish. I was getting about 13%. My Doré was coming back about 87% gold and 13% silver. So we do know that, but the fire assay tests, the assay tests I did on our free mill gold from the same location showed the free mill gold was 60% gold, 40% silver. So, yeah, we're probably not getting somewhere. And yeah, Chris, I couldn't exactly find it on their site, and they're freaking Canadian. I was looking for an American link. You wrote Maywater, Keith. Okay, well, we know it's Max Water, but I will rewrite it.
No,
I'm the one typing.
I did it right there.
Question about urban mining. Before dissolving AG from silver, from usually darkened plated silverware, how do you prepare the surface? The torch takes time, though barbecuing at 500 degrees, I haven't tried yet. Brian says, no prep, just do it. You strip it with Clorox.
Well, that would tend to give you some. Any losses would be in silver chloride.
Well, you got it to silver chloride, and then you use that
Yes, it
ammonia,
was
I
Wade
think.
Slave. That's what they say for nitrate reduction. Yep. We tried a number of different things and assayed the solution before and after, and that was one of the best recoveries. We tried a number of different resins from Purolite, and the Purigold something or other worked reasonably well. None of the others worked as well.
Now, I think if you strip with the Clorox, you got silver chloride, then you could reduce the silver chloride with ammonia.
Well,
can't you?
they're talking about getting rid of the
Yeah.
organics. They're just kind of coating.
Dan says, thanks for the info. I was curious. I have more silver than gold, so I'm trying to get it all, but I'm using the S series. Well, Dan, I will say this. I saw very different recoveries, both in terms of, I saw very different recoveries of silver between the Montana B ore and the top of the hill ore with exactly the same Eco Goldex and exactly the same resin. Okay, so this is very ore dependent.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a lot more silver ratio in that top of the hill stuff.
Chris says he's still amused that he hit a jackpot with the first few resins.
Yeah, I mean it really worked out pretty good.
Well,
And
Dan,
Chris really helped us out initially there too. He was real help.
Dan, one of the tests I'm planning to do here is when we get to using the glycine. I want to see how the glycine does with the silver, because I have seen some papers that claim that the glycine is just as efficient picking up silver as it is gold, but I wouldn't know. With this ore, it might be weird. Brian Smith says you convert the silver chloride with lye and then sugar.
You could. And by the way, just as an interesting little aside, there was a person who was relatively well known, but I will not mention their name on the internet, that had a thing, and I commented that our gravity separation circuit seemed to be doing a pretty good job of recovering gold down to 400 mesh. And this person was a bit skeptical and said, probably 150 mesh, but below that, I really don't think you're doing too good. You know, and I disagree simply because, again, I know I can hand pan down to about 1,000 mesh. Okay, I don't know what my recovery rate is at 1,000 mesh, but I can see it. Okay.
Well, Dan, I'll be looking for it too. Now, John Faber says he deflates the silver with a sulfuric and nitric solution, then it works good. He's in Nova Scotia, so Eco Goldex, and we'll check out Max Water product, higher recovery rate than the Goldex. The Max Water is the resin you use to get the gold and silver out of the
solution.
Eco Goldex. The Eco Goldex is the leach solution. that you use to get the gold and silver out of the ore.
Yeah, the Eco Gold X puts it in solution. Now you got to get it out of solution.
Brian says ping pong balls are working great in the humidifier. Well, that's cool.
Excellent. But anyhow, so
I hear it.
as I say, that person was rather skeptical, and I respectfully disagree. I think I'm getting pretty darn good recovery down to about 400 mesh or so, because I've got lots of particles of that size, and below that hardly anything, and that includes in the tailings in terms of panable and such. So as I say, I really think that just our simple VDR sluice mat with the pulverized ore and gentle gradient and flow seems to do pretty good for scalping the coarse gold.
And David says, and, indeed, David.
Absolutely. It'd be boring if it was easy. If all you had to do was one step, and it always worked. Fantabulous. Where's the fun in that? So, yeah. But I thought that was kind of interesting. What?
President Donald J. Trump has pardoned pro-life advocate Bevelyn Williams. She's going home to her family.
Yeah, disagreeing is not necessarily a crime anymore, huh?
Honey Bunny says, sorry I'm late. My hosted domain got hacked and I was dealing with law enforcement. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yay, she is out. She is getting out of prison, going home to her babies.
Excellent. Anyhow, so, let's say, she just distracted me. I completely lost my train of thought. But, yeah, I think that gentle sluicing will work down to 400 mesh when it's little balls like we've got fairly effectively. Then below that, either we don't have a whole heck of a lot, or, you know, it just winds up getting dissolved in the leach solution. But that's my thought. I still keep hearing that stupid phone. That's so weird.
So do I now.
Yeah.
Can you believe they hacked me on January 6th? What a coincidence.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yep. Okay, we're going to be really quiet for a minute. I want to hear something.
Yeah, there's a... Not now.
I have no idea.
Yep. We'll try and track it down later if it's still doing it. Let's,
Mr. Virtue says the topic is gold. Well, yeah, I know the topic's gold, but I personally wanted to celebrate that moment, so everybody can stop it.
Anyhow, so say I respectfully disagree. I think you can gravity recover in a sluice down to around 400 mesh with a pretty good degree of pretty high
And
percentage.
silver, yes, David. Or silver, yes.
If it's
But and
metallic.
silver.
If it's metallic. Now, one thing that may be kind of deceptive is this expert may not be dealing with impact mill gold, which takes the gold and put it in little round balls. Those have got to be real helpful in terms of getting it to gravity separate. There's not much settles faster than a sphere. They're rough spheres, but they are roughly spherical. There's always a danger of floating some, but at the 400 mesh, it doesn't seem to be too bad.
Brian says jet dry.
Yeah, we don't run jet dry in our leach solution. I mean, we got tons of it.
Yeah, we do not run anything in the leach circuit except the leach solution.
Except lime and the Eco Gold X.
Anything else, anybody else, if you happen to be doing your scalping of 3 mil gold without leach solution and you're going to be doing something else with the rest of the material, I can see that. But we don't want to add anything to that leach solution.
Well, and I don't know, for all I know, the lime itself is somewhat of a surfactant.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, do you have any opinion on that? Got some stuff there I can't read.
David Villa says contaminants, and Honey Bunny says I'm not as dense as gold, but there's no chance of her floating off.
Yeah. Well, I bet you got a density of less than 1. It may not be a lot less than 1, but it's probably a little less than 1. Even when I inhale, I become buoyant. Although if I exhale, I became, well, what is that? It's not buoyant. It's the opposite. I get negative buoyancy. But anyhow, what does Chris say there?
Chris says it'll break oils. Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't know, but for whatever reason, we don't seem to have a problem with that. We also go to a lot of trouble to try and make sure that all of the gold particles get thoroughly wetted before they're put onto the sluice. The dust collector bucket there, where we're adding the water to it, etc., it maintains a level of water about this high in the bucket. So to get out of the bucket, it literally has to go into the water, or it literally can't get out of the bucket. You know? What does Ryan say?
He says jet dry is ECOH and citric acid. That doesn't mean I want to mix in my leach solution, dude.
Well, with citric acid, it would probably be counterproductive, since we want to have a pH of about 10.5.
David, I would not say our water is excessively hard. The
Doesn't
pH,
seem like it.
the pH I've gotten on the well water out of the out at the lab, the summer lab, is about an 8.5 maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. Neutral is 7, so yeah, you get a little hydroxide or carbonate in there or something.
There's a rumor that Trump is going to start reversing the pardons that he can still.
Yeah, well, let's see. We go here. Somebody said it's the gold show.
Chris Georgie said put a mister head in there to help smaller droplets, perhaps.
Well, again, it's one of those this high above the outlet. It's got to get through 6 inches of water.
David says,
if
does
it's
that
floating-
even matter? And Chris says jet dry is probably just surfactants. That may be true, Chris. I still don't want it in my dang leach solution.
Well, we have to put a fair amount, and then we're also going to get more in the way of foaming. Even though it's a lot better than Dawn dish soap, it still causes foaming.
Dylan Francois says, what makes very fine gold float? Is it only mostly trace oil contamination, or are there other physicochemical
I think
factors?
now metals tend to be a little bit hydrophobic. So even pure gold is going to tend to be floaty.
And I think
Oil just
part
makes
of
it a lot worse.
I think part of it also is the shape of this gold.
Shape is important.
Red Wing, I'm already looking to see if I can find cheaper alternatives to jet dry, since I didn't the last time I looked around, at least not that he would use. He insists on Dawn dishwashing liquid too. Okay.
Yeah, Dawn dish soap will work too, but you get more foam
Yeah,
for
but
the same amount of action. I did a video years ago
the
on
best I can tell you, Red
YouTube.
Wing, is we got the cheapest price per ounce going with Costco, and if I had to use it in bulk, I would figure out the absolute minimum I needed to use, and I would weigh the darn stuff. So if I needed to use only, X number of milliliters per gallon, then I would freaking measure that stuff out.
Well,
That's just me. Now,
any bubbling is going to make it worse too. So try and avoid any kind of agitation, foaming.
Chris says the
Anything like
contact angle is one of the big factors, along with very thin oxide layers. Honey Bunny says sodium bicarbonate would interfere with the chemical reaction? Question mark. I don't know. I don't want to find out. Okay.
Well, sodium bicarbonate might not. I mean, it's a basic solution that we're using at about pH 10 to 10.5, but it's a hydroxide. We're using calcium hydroxide, lime.
David says static can affect floating, static
Yeah.
electricity. Honey Bunny says with baking soda you'd have no foaming if you had enough surfactants action. It's really cheap at the feed store in 5-pound bags.
Yeah, I say that might work. It might work fine for the hand panning and such.
Jean-Francois says at chemical companies you can buy very low sensing detergent in bulk.
Yeah, something like that would probably work. I've only tested the Dawn versus the Jet Dry because they're readily available.
Chris has a link to oilcenter.com for polysorbate 80, which I believe is a food additive. So,
I think it's an emulsifier, but I'm not sure.
well, it's some sort of, I know it sounds familiar from something.
Yeah, it is food additive.
We have a high pH, it should be okay, according to Honey Bunny, the baking soda. You can get it straight. Polysorbate 80. Wage Slave says, anyone else got a bead after cupelling that was incandescent like rainbow surface effect after it cooled? I have not. Well,
Iridescent,
let
not
me-
incandescent.
yeah, iridescent. Let me clarify what I just said, Wage Slave. Are we talking a silver bead or are we talking a gold bead? Because if we are talking a bead that still has silver, as in before parting, yeah, I actually have had a few that came out with very light rainbow to them, a very light rainbow iridescence that was basically, I took it as being an artifact of perhaps a more oxidizing environment than I'm usually running in, because at the time I had to keep the door to my kiln quite a lot more open than I usually do. But I'm not sure. That's the only time I've ever gotten it. Chris also put in another link for everybody to something. Red Wing says, how about the products uses additives to Roundup weed killers? No idea.
That's the faintest.
Sodium bicarbonate turns into sodium carbonate within a short time or above some temperature of 40 to 50 C. Yes, it does. Chris, talking to Red Wing, says it might be worth trying the additives for Roundup.
Yeah, emulsifiers.
Well, Honey Bunny, I've gotten the iridescence he was talking about. As I said, I've gotten that on silver beads, but only under very limited conditions in my kiln. And yeah, I would think the surfactant in Roundup is super poisonous. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with Roundup. So,
Well, the surfactants themselves may be entirely different as long as you can get just the surfactant.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, as I was saying, Lauren said he's going to be getting one of these V4 kilns, and if he does, then we'll go see about going over there and trying it out a little bit and giving a little better view of what it is and how it works and this and that and the other. So,
John Francois says sodium bicarbonate in water solution. Yeah.
yeah. So, I'd say we'll see there, and the tabletop has worked, but the design was less than ideal for our purposes because we put it to such purposes.
Anybody says read the MSDS on Roundup, it's contact carcinogen, probably.
The Roundup itself probably is.
Chris says glycerol, sodium xylene sulfonate, alkyl phenol ethoxylate. Yeah. Red Wing says Tractor Supply advertises it as a surfactant. Well,
Yeah. I say, as long as it's safe, you can always test it in small quantities, lab scale. But that's that's my basic thing. Is I'm ignorant enough that I feel absolutely zero confidence in my ability to predict.
Wage Slave says
Chemistry.
show and tell. Show and tell what, Wage Slave?
I did a
David Villa says what she said. Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna start a new playlist on basically metallurgical testing, and that ought to. But again, I've got, I think it was like 600 videos, so it's awfully hard for people to just kind of go back there and look and find stuff. That's why I'm doing the playlist thing. Did anyone actually try doing the playlist who didn't know that much, and how did it work out for them and stuff? I'm trying to get a little
Faber
feedback.
says you heat your leech tank. From the bit of research I've done, it works better at 120. John, we do not heat our leech tank deliberately. To clarify this, we use an agitation tank.
Okay.
We've got 3 pumps in it
horsepower.
that
Three
are
times 3/4 horsepower.
Yeah, we've got 3 times 3/4 horsepower pumps. The pumps on a summer day will get my tank up to 36 Celsius, so a little over 100 degrees in 5 hours. Those 3 pumps will raise my temperature approximately 1 degree Celsius per hour. We have found that things work very fast and very well at that temperature. And it has always been my philosophy to do as little tinkering around as shit as humanly possible.
I would agree that in an ideal world, getting your solution.
Rick says, I didn't catch which V-bore kiln we were talking about. I have the electric tabletop kiln brand new. I can send it to you so you can check it out. Well, Rick, we have beaten my tabletop kiln to death. He can go outside in the below zero weather and get it to show
it's
you.
It's in the left here.
Go get it and stick it in front of the camera for y'all who haven't seen how it ended up this year. Okay? So, since we're talking kilns, I will get on camera. Hi, everybody. Since we're talking kilns, you may have heard about a couple of years ago when we had this tabletop kiln, and he fixed it, and it was being janky and stupid, and then he redesigned it and made it jankier and stupider. The number of times I have cursed this kiln and threatened to blow it up, or set it on fire, or melt it down, or do something else with it. I will say this. I am now to the point where if this thing ever finally actually dies in a way that we cannot fix it, I want to enshrine it on its own shelf with its own nice little brass tag. Because I'll tell you, when it comes to tabletop, we have pushed this thing far beyond anything the designers ever intended. This is my tabletop now. And you can see the door is all wrong here. And the outside is all that.
You're gonna have to.
This is the inside,
Get a little closer
right
to
here. Okay? Oh, don't do that. That's ridiculous. That is the inside of my tabletop after he redesigned it and he has rebuilt it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I need to completely reline it and make a new heating element. The bottom of the kiln, could you open it, please? Okay, if you look on the bottom, you can see there's a little tray there. That's a cast ceramic, or not ceramic, but refractory.
Refractory.
And the purpose is to do exactly what it's doing there,
If your
which is to catch the crud.
if your smelter boils over, it doesn't
Your
eat your
crucible,
floor.
yeah. And so this becomes a sacrificial piece, and you can just throw these away. It's costs less than $1 to make.
And yes, Chris, I really do. The bottom of our tank actually has a black base that it sits on. The whole bottom conical part is black. but I actually wanted to paint it black about halfway up with about a foot wide, foot and a half wide strip, just so we can see water, you know, so we can see liquid levels and everything. But yeah, that is my kiln.
Yeah.
And John says, oh great, haven't tried leeching yet, so any advice is very helpful. Yeah, basically I am what I would call a minimal intervention fan. If I can get something done at ambient temperature or with just the equipment that causes it to happen, I'm a very happy camper. And we have gotten excellent leech kinetics and excellent times in that if we were sitting there and running that tank, we could probably process the 3/4 of a ton of ore and get it, all the gold and silver into the leach solution in what?
What?
If we were just sitting and running the pumps and not having to stop them and wait overnight,
Yeah.
how long would it take us to get all the gold and silver out of that 3/4 of a ton of ore?
We're not ever going to get all of it, but all
Well,
of
you
it.
know what I mean.
24 hours of agitation should be adequate.
24 hours of agitation at most. I'm betting it happens a lot quicker than that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, getting everything on to the pad and letting it percolate through.
Yeah. Now,
But
the problem is, if you're just getting started with leaching, remember, getting it dissolved is only part of the problem. Now you got to get it out of
wants to
solution.
know, where should I get some paint-on protective coating for ceramic wool? Any particular brand?
I don't have a real
I will let him take that.
knowledge or preference on that particular thing. I understand what you're saying, and I simply don't have an answer for you.
I'm sure somebody here might.
But I'd say that ceramic, that refractory
Cement. basically.
floor is basically just basically a patching compound, you know, for fireplaces and stuff like that, kilns. But it's not designed as like a real paint-on sort of.
We can probably check at the fireplace store and see if they have
I don't
anything.
know.
Wage Slave says water glass.
There is some like that, and I think you're correct. It's basically sodium silicate.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Douglas Pohl says Belzona coating. Which number ass sells?
Okay. I haven't tried any, so I have no specific knowledge or preference on that. And it's frustrating to me that tabletop kiln. The problem always has been the insulating liner has been so fragile that it's just almost useless in some ways.
Yeah, Wage Slave. I know it's a concrete sealer.
You know,
I don't know if it would work in this application, but yeah. I mean,
I don't know. The water glass would make a silica coating, and that might be that might be good enough to protect it, hold it. I don't know, but yeah, it was frustrating because what came with the tabletop is so fragile. I believe it's basically kind of like a fiber board, but you know, staples don't like to sit in it, and yet your heating elements, the way they were built, go over the top and down and then over the top again.
yeah,
It's
we
like,
found out how bad that was.
and it's like, oh, this just didn't work too well.
Jean-Francois, I would suggest when it comes for looking for paint-on stuff or things like that, that's actually what I would do. I would contact a foundry, or I would talk to a fireplace store, or a store that sells wood stoves. I'm thinking
Yeah, probably
things
not
like
wood
that.
stoves. Fireplaces, yeah.
David Villa says rock wool type.
Rock wool is a good insulation, but it's
Chris
got
says
no physical
Satanite.
strength.
Yeah, we've used Satanite.
That is Satanite, that
Yeah.
little thing there. But I say it's one of those things that is rather difficult to get what I want. I want something that's essentially like styrofoam that'll take 2,000 degrees without a problem. It's stiff. It's easy to cut. You can stick a staple in it and it'll stay. Like, you know, I want it to have the texture of styrofoam, but it doesn't. This stuff is so very fragile, the stuff that the tabletop comes with, that it's real pain. And so that was my biggest issue. Now, again, I want to bring up Chris George's been an enormous amount of help in terms of helping us to get to where we can fire brick. Is that what you said? Yeah, that's what I thought. I was going to take some fire brick and cut it with a diamond saw, and I think I could probably make something where I can put individual pieces and make it work just fine. But Chris was very helpful in helping us to get, you know, the replaceable heating elements. The heating element from Tabletop was like $90 for an element, and I'm just ballparking here, but I think we can make an element for less than $10 and pretty quickly. I mean, we just take, I think it was 20 feet or 19 feet of the wire and just wrap it onto a
Red one
half-inch
says space
metal.
shuttle tiles.
Yeah,
Chris says you don't need a fancy saw, just carbide tooth hand saw will work.
I imagine, or let's say you can go down to the hardware store and just buy a little diamond disc for a disc grinder and use that to cut it too, you know, and that would work. One thing that you can't see, I don't think, if you look up there, I believe, you'll see my new corkboard, which has a series of zones and items, and so I can move stuff around. I have a list that I can take stuff off, put stuff on, move it around, and all in one place so I don't lose it. We have Canthal wire, Jean-Francois.
We wind our own with Canthal wire, and
And
it's good.
we wind our own. It's we take a
Chris
7/8
says
inch
they
dowel.
cut like butter, just a bit abrasive.
Yeah. And we have a 7/16 dowel, and we just make a little hook and start wrapping it, you know, going slow in a drill, and just wind it up. And
Can band board?
I don't know. I never heard of it. I'm sure there's stuff that I don't know.
Don Faber says it's a plumber by trade. If you can find an older gas boiler from an apartment building, they have the material in them you're looking for as insulation.
Okay. I know they make it. I don't know how much it costs, how hard it is to get a hold of, or anything like that. It's not on my high priority list right now. It's down there in the get around to sometime zone
Oh my God.
on the pegboard, on the thing there. So anyhow, that's when we get around to that, I will go ahead and do it. But I was thinking of fire brick simply because it's pretty solid, and I know I can carve it. So that was kind of my thought. But we'll see that. But that's been our problem, is the solid part.
A simple project management tool, mostly implemented using sticky notes. Okay.
Okay, hold
He's
on a
talking
second.
about a
Hold
new-
on a second. Simon Store.
Simon Store ceramic fiber insulation board.
See, I don't know how the will of fire thing is it. How how good an insulator.
Fire brick is cheap and available.
You know? Oh, Kanban board is, yeah, exactly. But anyhow, that was my thought. Fire brick is easy to get, it's cheap, and I can cut it to exactly the shapes and everything that I want with high precision. So, should work out pretty well. Yeah, I was just going to reline that stainless steel box of the tabletop, because everything except the insulation and the heating element is fine. And so that's my plan. And I can also take with the fire brick and I can drill little holes in it and use like brads or something as pins to hold the heating elements in. So, as I say, I was planning on doing that later on, again, with dealing with stuff like keeping the water flowing under these conditions. I'm getting caught up on my firewood.
Brian says use the fire brick for base and put Portland cement on top of it to catch spill. Chris says you can use a wood router and bits to T&G it if you need to, put in grooves and stuff.
Yeah. I understand. It should be something really, and I could use the fire brick and then use a little Satanite essentially as an adhesive, or believe it or not, they make a ceramic, I don't know if it's ceramic, but anyhow, it's a refractory caulking and adhesive. Comes in a DAP tube. It's expensive as heck, but you can take it and use it just like you would caulking.
Chris says use a shallow angle V groove bit for the heating elements.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a number of different things I can do. If I was to do it, the idea would be,
Wow.
if here's the wall, got a groove like that in the wall for the heating element. So the heating element will go here. So, as I say, there's all kinds of interesting things. The nice thing about using the fire brick and a stainless steel box is that's easily scalable too. Now you could take essentially the control system that we have on our tabletop using a different relay and 220 volts.
I have a question.
And use two elements.
You know those little apartment-sized refrigerators?
Yeah.
Are those stainless steel?
No.
Damn it. I was just thinking, we took one of those, and we lined it, we put heating elements in it, I'd have a big kiln.
Yeah, well, it'd be a little too much, General, maybe.
A gal can dream.
Yeah. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. And, but anyhow, as I say, Chris has been very helpful in terms of teaching us how to use these things, and we like to pass along the knowledge.
Victory dance, victory dance.
Oh. So, that's something that we may get onto.
Wasteland says, could you rip old elements from used clothes dryers for replacements?
I have no clue.
David Villa is intimating that this is overkill, girl. No, it ain't, dude.
The problem with the kind of heating elements there is they're inside a jacket. And we need something that can get to bright yellow heat. And those elements typically are not designed for that.
Chris says a stainless steel beer keg. Now I'm thinking, if we sliced one of those vertically, because you see, that's the one thing I do like about the tabletop. I was looking at coffin kilns and glass slumping kilns, etc., because some of those come in very large sizes indeed, but most of them are top open. I want a front open like my
I
tabletop.
really like the front open.
I love the front open. So if we got a stainless steel beer keg and we sliced it vertically.
Little one. We know a guy who can weld stainless steel. It's easy to bend stainless steel. It's pretty easy to make a stainless steel box. Okay? So, not a huge
man.
problem. I say, if we get to that point, we'll see about making something and showing how we did that. Every time I see stainless steel appliances, garbage. Yeah. I personally find the stainless steel on most appliances to be a little thin for what I'd prefer to do. But, the price is right. Yeah. So, anyhow, that's my thought.
Sorry guys, I gotta go check on my fire.
That's like so special, Alex. Glad to see you here. We were talking about kilns and such, but I don't think, let's say, all the electronics and stuff of the tabletop would work in a bigger one. You just have to use a different relay to switch the power and go to 220. Yeah. Because his house burned up in the fires around Los Angeles, and his father-in-law's house too. So, the expenses are a little more than usual right now. I mean, he just went back to work a month or so ago because money was getting a little tight in retirement, so needed to get some more money. And then, as he says, went to work for JPL for a month and now I'm homeless. Yeah. Yeah, it would look kind of cool, wage slave. Yeah, and the VBOR kiln doesn't have the programmable profiles in it like the tabletop does. On the other hand, with the exception of ramping up temperatures over a particular profile for certain things, we really didn't use that much of that. Yeah, exactly, Jean-Francois. It's not pretty hard. It's apparently, for people who know electronics, it's pretty simple. Yeah. Yeah, it could be really annoying, Alex. Exactly. Yeah, you can also use a propane heating methodology too. There's a variety of ways about going about this thing. I really do like the front load. That makes it really nice to put crucibles and stuff like that in, as opposed to a top load. If you're doing big stuff, a top load cylindrical kiln, they're easy to make, and siren outside, and they work absolutely. But I was surprised at how simple it is in theory. So I just I don't know electronics and stuff very well, but with someone like Chris to help out, tell me what to do, it wasn't too hard at all. Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, that's not good, Alex. So, as I say, we got a lot of stuff that seems complex, but it's not really once you know what you're doing. Just, unfortunately, I know a little bit about a lot of things, but not a lot about a lot of things. And so that's why I rely on people like Chris to help me out. Yeah, the cumulative knowledge of this group is pretty good. Let me check on something here. 23, looking here.
Hi, everybody.
Yep, that's true, Alex. That's why you just got to be adaptable. I'd say Lars seems to be handling it okay, but yeah, it's a financial strain. And I would imagine that right now, trying to find housing in Los Angeles is like impossible, you know, unless you got piles of money. Oh, you got a job pending, huh? Rare earth garnet crystals for lenses. Sweet. Yeah. That sounds good. Oh. Yeah. That'd be, you know, rebuilding that tabletop would be kind of cool. It could be done pretty cheap. But,
Well, with our current budget, it would have to be done cheap. Or free. Lasers.
yeah, Alex has a job.
Yeah, that's what he says, lasers. Hey, anything is great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Brian, it's much, much cheaper to wind them yourself. That's why we bought the...
Yeah.
I mean, the wire costs like $1 some odd a foot shipped for the really good wire, and our little tabletop uses, what, 10 feet of it. So...
That's 20 feet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it cost us, I think it was maybe $9 an element at most.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheap.
That's pretty cheap. More sirens. Oh. Anyhow, so that's basically it. Anyhow, Lars has a GoFundMe set up. Still haven't gotten any feedback. Did anyone find the playlist system useful? Or is everyone here already pretty well informed?
Dan Garland says, I got a nice big kiln that would probably work for you. It needs completely rebuilt like the one I'm using, but you could do 6 or 8 assays at one time. Ooh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
G-Bro says, hello all from South Bend, Indiana. Hello, G-Bro. If
Hello,
you got
G-Bro.
any mining or metals questions, ask.
I presume you're not in the neighborhood, Dan.
Alex says, during the interview, they handed me a 10-pound crucible and said it's pure iridium. I went home and checked the prices, and that crucible was around $600,000 worth of iridium. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Wow. That would be like a lot.
That's the kind of thing you don't want to drop that. Just saying.
Iridium is, I believe, the second densest element by a tiny fraction. For a while there, they were arguing whether it was osmium or iridium, and they finally had to, like, do the atomic crystalline structure lattice analysis or something. And that's their smallest crucible. Well, I'm guessing what they make is pretty valuable.
Jean-Francois says he hasn't had time to look at the playlist. Dan says we'll be around springtime. He lives in Eastern Washington right now.
Okay.
Well, that would be great, Dan. We would be happy to come see you.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to get over there, but if he's on the way over here, let us know. And that goes to everybody too. Anyone who's driving through the area or wants to stop and, you know, have a hamburger or something, we always like going out.
Well, I mean, I want to go get a chance to see Liberty. Wilderness Medic says, why did so many people only assay a 30-gram sample? I don't think I could even see it. Because it's called an assay ton. Wilderness, the math behind this is weird math. But that 20, that sample size represents 1 ton of rock, and a 1 milligram bead represents 1 ounce of gold.
Well, it's because, especially in the old days, you could only melt so much, such a size charge. I mean, to melt a 30-gram sample, you're talking a crucible about this big. And that's one of the limiting factors, is you're trying to make it relatively inexpensive and relatively quick and relatively reliable and relatively precise.
And you wanted numbers that are easy to work with. I mean, I can look at a 1
Well, yeah, but the 29.7 grams or whatever the heck it is.
29.66.
Yeah, that's a different thing. He says, why not 300 grams? Why not 10 grams?
Well,
That's
you can
why.
do a 10 assay ton sample. My book tells you
Yeah.
how. The thing is, you usually use for precious metals 1 assay ton. When they were doing samples for lead, for instance, when they were doing assays for lead and base metals back in the day, and copper, they'd often use a 10 assay ton sample, which would be 300 grams of material.
Yeah.
But they also used to do scorification assays, which were a lot different from fire assays for a lot of base metals.
Yeah, I say, it's just the particular number is designed to make the math simple, but the size roughly was designed because it's easy to do and relatively inexpensive. And that's why. Let's say 100-gram sample would cost over 3 times as much. Yeah.
Wilderness says, thanks for the explanation. I'm just worried I wouldn't even see a 1 milligram bead. Well,
yeah, it's
first
not
of all,
for the faint of heart.
Wilderness, what I usually do, just because it makes life a lot easier, if you're not looking for an ultra down to the 4th decimal place accuracy, what I often do is I will weigh out a 5-gram sample, and I will split it into 15 different samples, and I will make 15 little itty bitty beads, and I will weigh them all together after I have parted everything. Once I get my individual beads that you can't even see, I will put those individual beads all together, part them, and weigh all the results.
Well, here's another thing. This is a microscope. It's got a reticle in it where you can measure stuff to the 1,000th of an inch.
And we have a table you can use.
It's about $65. From this and the table she was mentioning, you can get a pretty good guesstimate of what the weight of the bead is without actually having to weigh it. To actually weigh a 1 milligram bead is kind of tricky.
I can't do it.
To observe it, though, let's see what's a milligram here.
I think we should have highlighted that, but if we didn't, I will look it up.
1 milligram.
A 1 milligram gold bead.
0.009. So 9/1000ths of an inch. That can measure to 1/1000th of an inch. Okay? See how this can work?
Alex said, yeah, I know, Jean-Francois, the balance. I mean, the balance I have is ridiculously.
No, you have a scale, not a
My
balance.
scale is a scale, and it sucks. Okay, and that the one that Jean-Francois is talking about, I have a scale that supposedly goes to the 4th decimal place. It doesn't really, and it's a pain in the butt. Alex said a friend of his just got a really fancy brand new giant hammer mill just for fun. I'm jealous. Oh yeah.
Okay, Wilderness. Eva, can you go to the main thing on and look this up? It's in my starred things.
I will try.
Okay, she's gonna try and look it up and get you the link to it. You're gonna have to open a new window.
I already have a new window.
Okay.
I'm in it.
In there.
No. Playlist. No.
No idea. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Pocket measuring microscopes.
Okay. Grab the link.
I am getting the link. Hold on,
Okay.
people. I cannot see the chat window while I am doing this.
Okay, so she's going to put the link in the chat now.
This is
There
for the
you go.
microscopes. Later, Rockhound.
Yep. So there's the link for that little.
And if you want to drop us an email, we may have a digital file of our little size chart we use. That size chart is for gold beads, not for doré beads, not for silver beads. It's for the gold bead after you get to the end of your essay.
You could probably find it. It came with one of Chris's emails, so we should be able to find it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to get you the most accurate number ever, unless your goal is 3 9s, you know.
Yeah, Wilderness, exactly. And
it's going to get you a great start. It's going to get you a good close ballpark.
the other thing that's really important with gold is the gold particle size makes a huge difference when you're grinding rock up. You know, what size is everything. That right there allows you to visually measure stuff very quickly and easily, and that comes in extremely handy. That's why I can sit there and say, yeah, they're covering 400 mesh gold. Let's see how wide one of these lines is. Need a light. Could you give me a flashlight, little one? Okay, one of these lines is 11 thousandths of an inch wide. One of the blue lines on that right there.
So
that's how easy it is.
If your gold bead fits inside that blue line.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just exactly how easy it is to use.
Wilderness says even a ballpark is enough to justify a lab assay. I'm picking up 3 mil gold in my microscope at 40x that's still barely visible. Yeah.
Yeah. I say, are you familiar with my hand panning technique to pan that microfine gold? Because that comes in real handy. It's not definitive, it's not extremely precise, but it can give you a reasonable idea very quickly. And my standard size sample is 2 pounds. So it gives you a good statistical universe there to deal with. Okay. Yeah. I say that's the thing. And that microscope is what I use to determine that. And that's why I can, I say with confidence, say, I'm getting down to 400 mesh. You know, I can pan down to 1,000 mesh. I can pan it down to a 0.5 thousandth of an inch, or the smallest particles I can see. You know, but at that point, I am probably losing a pretty good percentage of it. But the 400 mesh, I think I'm probably doing pretty darn good on that, because when I repan the tailings, I don't get squat. And that's kind of your indication. That's the other thing that I do that's different than a lot of people is I pan quick, and then I pan it again and again.
Well, then it says the reveal from your video is the only thing that let
Yeah.
me start seeing it. Absolutely.
Yep. So, anyhow, I say that's one thing I do differently too. You got some people that are very meticulous and trying to get everything and go slow and carefully. Yeah, slow and careful is slow. And I need production. When I got into mining, at our little teeny mine, we were moving gold at the rate of $300 a minute. In terms of that's what was going in the trucks. When we were loading ore, we were getting about $300 a minute. So they didn't want to waste any time. Speed, 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 efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. So that's kind of my natural mindset, is how can you do it efficient and cheap? It doesn't matter so much what your percentage efficiency is. The question is it reasonable, and what is your total production? You know, if you get 80% recovery at $300 a minute, or 90% recovery at $150 a minute of ore, which one are you making more money per minute? It's not hard. So that's my mindset, is what's the bottom line, and try and be fast and efficient at the same time, but you have to balance that. You know, the more efficient you are, the higher the cost, the slower it goes. That's just the way life is. So you have to pick a balance point and go for it. Anyhow, any other subjects to discuss here? Anyone got any questions or any subjects to evaluate? I think this is the first time you've been here, maybe twice. Are you finding the live stream useful, I presume? This is what it's for, is so people can ask questions that's specific to them.
Ask him about the playlist.
Get an answer, and then everyone else can listen, and some people will find out answers to their questions that they hadn't even thought to ask yet. So that's kind of our purpose here.
A lot of subjects tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Wilderness says he sure is.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the reasons he's putting together playlists for y'all, so that you'll be able to just go to the playlist section and, well, I want to learn how to stake a gold claim. I'll click on this link and get the whole playlist.
Absolutely, Jean-Francois.
Brian, we have not gotten back to the Xrays yet. We had this below zero thing that was causing like water to stop being liquid in our pipes, and a few other little details.
Well, that and the shredder is pretty much dead, so we're going to wait till my next Social Security check shows up and buy another shredder.
Well, we can get another $7 shredder over at Samaritan.
How well will it work? We shall see. But anyhow, Jean-Francois, especially in the United States, back in the 40s, the U.S. government decided that gold mining was a non-essential activity. And so they forcibly closed a lot of gold mines. And the miners either went mining other stuff or wound up shooting and getting shot. And so quite a number of these mines became lost. Plus, you always have the situation over time where the price of gold goes up and down, technology improves, and this and that and the other, regulations change. What is profitable one year is unprofitable another, and so things get abandoned.
1 year to the day after Pearl Harbor, yeah?
Any experience with the RP4? Yes. I have had an RP4. And it's not bad.
You're going to have to sit back a little. Your head's cut
Okay.
off.
It's not bad. It has its limitations. I learned a lot from it. I've done some other stuff that makes a better table for what I need to do, but I'm not in production at this time.
Dan says he's had good service at work the last couple of weeks, so I've probably watched or mostly listened to about 50 hours of live streams. You got great info.
Well, thank
That
you,
was
Dan.
all while killing trees. Oh, you're in the tree killing business? Okay.
I think that would be Christmas trees, I guess. But anyhow, so
Brian says he's writing a script for a video about it that got 3 miners killed.
yeah, you need to take and hand pan your ore. First of all, you're going to need, if you're dealing with a hard rock ore, you're going to need to crush it, wilderness, and as such, that may easily be your bottleneck, that may be your critical point, and you need to see what particle size you need to crush it with, down to get good recoveries, what particle size your gold is. The RP4 can work okay, but you need to do some small-scale testing first to make sure it's going to do what you
Dan
need
says
it to
big
do.
trees in a hot saw.
Oh, really? A hot saw? Wow. Competition? But anyhow, the thing you need to do to find out whether or not the RP4 is what you need, brush it up, hand pan it, assay the results, see what size particles of gold you're getting, things like that, and then you'll have an idea whether or not your RP4 is going to do what you need. For example, if you have something like what we call Montana B over here, yeah, you're going to get real disappointed in the RP4 because
Brian says it's a great story with lots of pics and a first-hand description. That's cool.
but it's just got too fine a gold. It'll float right off an RP. It'll float right off of everything. Okay, that's 80% at 6.8 microns. Or 80% of the gold by weight, we know this by electron microscope analysis, is 6.8 microns or smaller, which is around 2,500 mesh. So, whatever works good. Dan, filler buncher, huh? Well, the tools they got nowadays make it a lot easier.
Yeah, he's logging to finances mining. That's cool.
But that's what I would say about the RP4. It's not a bad device. It has its limitations. And before you buy any extraction device of any size, you need to know whether it's going to do the job you need it to do. And typically you do that by doing some small-scale testing, like on pan-sized samples, to see whether or not you're going to get good recoveries. Because I was getting down to 500 mesh gold in my recovery device, and I call it the Trip Concentrator because of Matt Tripp from Trip Prospecting gave me the idea, and I put that stuff through there. Man, I only got like 20% recovery. You know.
RP4 is very limited in throughput, according to Chris.
Yeah, it is. About 100 pounds an hour.
So how is the logging business?
Say it's one of those things that do it small scale first, and go from there. Make sure it's even going to work on your ore, because I say the RP4 would be a waste on Montana B. On top of the hill, probably work okay. $2,000 if it's in good shape is not a bad price. Okay. What kind of crushing and pulverizing equipment do you have? Again, that's one of those questions that comes in really important.
Chris asks, are you reasonably handy? That is a good question.
Yeah.
Next question on the list.
Well, in that case, you're somewhat limited in what you can do. The K&M 14-inch, that's not too bad. Lots of slimes. Yeah, that's the problem with impact milling. If you don't have integral classification, you can get a lot of slimes, but you may get good liberation though. So got 6 of one, half dozen of the other, and but yeah, if you got a K&M 14-inch, you can grind some decent sized samples, blend them, test them, see what's happening, and make sure you're getting good recovery. If you can get good recovery with the pan, you can probably get good recovery with a high precision gravity technique. On the other hand, what's your ore grade also? Okay. That's also real important, because you're not going to make any money if you don't have a good enough grade. Your milling costs are just going to be too high. So do you have a good idea what your ore grade is, Wilderness Medic?
Chris says he'd keep shopping around for a table at a better cost to throughput ratio.
Yeah.
And then Brian says after leaching. Not sure what we're talking about.
Slime settle and decant after leaching.
Yeah.
What are you saying? Okay. You tested your material to determine exactly where the gold is in it. Yeah, you need to do a particle size analysis, a liberation analysis. Again, there's a lot of things you need on a small scale before you worry about buying equipment. You know, the one thing where I can say, yeah, go ahead and buy it fairly early is the pulverization and stuff. That is probably way too low a grade. 4 to 10 ounce pocket of high grade. Well, the high grade would be fine, but I mean, that's what you need to find out. And that's where the panning technique comes in handy in determining what you've got. some of your better grade stuff, you should probably send some off for assay to get a good idea what your numbers are. Notice that while Brian's asking that quick, because without an assay, you don't have a number, you just got an idea. And numbers are terribly important because the whole idea is to make money in general. And that comes from calculations. I have a mining cost calculator thing that helps out on that, but you need to have the raw numbers to plug into it. Yeah, as a lot of people who have been doing this for a little bit will tell you, sample, 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 test, 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 then worry about designing a mill. Because until you do that, you don't even know if you don't have an ore body, then what are you designing a mill for? You know, if you wind up that spot doesn't work, then you're going to need to go find another spot, and that might be radically different. You know, variety of tests, but that's where people who aren't experienced in this tend to make big mistakes, is making too many assumptions and guesses. I tend to agree, Shaggy, but I got a lot to do until then, so I'm not bored, that's for sure. And let's see. On the 10th, it's entirely possible we may not have a live stream because we'll be over in Billings. We may be able to do it over Eva's phone or whatever, but I don't know. I'll let you know next week. Yeah, because Eva's getting surgery on the 11th, so we will not be here on the 10th. And that's... Hey, John, thank you for that link. John was the one that sent me the link for that Vivor kiln, by the way. Yeah, if you use the water container as a weight to hold the base of the table, that comes in real handy. Because it tends to bounce around. You've got to hold the base of a shaker table solidly. Most importantly, it can't bounce up and down at all. You can have a little bit of, you know, imperfection horizontally, but not up and down. What's a good email to contact you? Oh, let me write this in here. And my eyeballs are not what they used to be. There's that thing there. There we go. Okay. There we go. If you've got a mining shack, that's good. Wilderness, another thing you can do, if you make a good solid tub, you put your water in and you bolt it to the bottom of the tub, that can work out well too. Okay. You're welcome, Dan. Oh. Well, we've been going almost 2 hours now. Anything else here before we call it a night? I'm a little tired. Oh. Oh, let me change the looking there is one thing, yeah. But let's see. I wonder what a good is for coal. What a good assay is for coal. Yeah, I don't know. I think they worry about BTUs per ton or something like that. I think it's pretty much your carbon content.
Yeah, I mean, basically, that's what they look at it for gold. It's the same thing they do with a cord of wood.
Yep.
5 to 8 labs and 5 to 8 pounds of chips, huh?
I'm guessing that's microelectronics.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we got anything else here before we call it a night? Thank you, John. Yeah, wilderness, that could be useful. Yep. Just be very careful. If it collapsed once, you'll need to make sure you get good ground control.
Do we have a video on that?
Not per se. It's all very specific. You're welcome, wilderness. Anyhow, wilderness, we're here every Monday night at 6, with the possible exception of 2 weeks from now due to being on the road there.
And if you have any other questions, you can always drop a comment on any of his videos, or you can email the email address that's on the bottom of any of his videos at the end.
Yeah. And again, thank you, John, for sending me that link. I appreciate it. Go ahead, honey bunny. Oh. So, anyhow, as usual, not much mining this week because it's like cold out there.
Oh, hi and bye, Kodak.
Yep. Oh. Let's see how long is it. There we go. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Bye-bye. What?
We've been withdrawn from who? All of the J6 people in jail have been pardoned. They're getting out tonight. All of their things are rolling in online. And we're going reporting. And I've been missing it because of this shit.